Sicko fiti, sicko fiti, sicko fiti, sicko fiti, sicko fiti, sicko fiti.
Still see the champ in the mirror. Always gonna be alright, cause mama gave her back to a winner. Life fake in it, lemon, it I squeeze, make some lemonade. Now his streets, me jump my demons, I'ma pull up with some grenades.
This is Hendrix Sam.
Hekima mdomoni mwake na uzuri wake wasambaza kote. Heshima kwake ni msingi, akiipeana apewa kwa wingi. Kusu kusu kusu, wivu na wivu, jamaa yake mwendo wake. Kusu kusu, wivu na wivu, jamaa yake. Manzi wa maana ni manzi wa nguvu, manzi ambaye amwogopaye Mungu siku zake zote. Ni manzi wa nguvu, manzi ambaye amwogopaye Mungu siku zake zote. Kazi zake ni za kuvutia, lote afanyalo afanyia Mungu, na ukweli ndiyo nguvu yake. Maombi moyoni yamuimarisha, na ujali wa mwingine chake yeye haki, usichana wake hadi wawe. Chali wa mwingine chake yeye haki, usichana wake. Manzi wa maana ni manzi wa nguvu, manzi ambaye amwogopaye Mungu siku zake zote. Ni manzi wa nguvu, manzi ambaye amwogopaye Mungu siku zake zote. Maana ni manzi wa nguvu, manzi ambaye amwogopaye Mungu siku zake zote. Ni manzi wa nguvu, manzi ambaye amwogopaye Mungu siku zake zote. Henry Mutuku ulinifunza manzi wa maana,
Pawa Radio. Tune in and power up.
Manzi wa Maana, the cover by Fee, just playing over there. Hello, welcome to today's show. My name is Muthoni Gitau. This is Power Radio, and you're listening to She Talks. It's a very cloudy gloomy Wednesday morning, morning. It's still morning, and I'm hoping we can change the vibes kidogo. But I think as a nation, we're in mourning. I don't know about everyone. I don't know about everyone else. I know people who are in the reproductive health space are mourning. I know feminists are mourning. I know activists are mourning this morning because we lost one of us. And it's a dull day. The day looks like it feels. That's all I'm gonna say. We have a show ahead of us today. I don't know what kind of show. We will find out as we go. But we started off a show by playing Siko Fiti, which is a song by Matata. And what I like about this particular song is that it sort of highlights that saying that we like to say that it's okay not to be okay. It highlights that to an extent, but sometimes I feel like that's as far as we're willing to go with that. We are never willing to go beyond that. But it's like, yeah, it's okay to not be okay. And then what happens next? Because we don't want to stay in those spaces for too long. Kenyans are still shenaniganing out here, so we're going to have a look at what's been happening since we last saw each other on Monday, and maybe share our hopes for the rest of the week. So that's where I'm at. We are on social media. The handle is Pawa Radio. That is PAWA Radio. And you can also use the hashtag SheTalks or SheTalks on Power Radio or the hashtag Power Radio. You can find us on almost all platforms. You can watch us live on YouTube, Power Radio, or you can listen in through the website power254.org/Power Radio. For now, here is Tetushani and Labdi.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Just a little bit, yeah.
The money make me fly like a kite. I wish the money make me fly like a kite. I wish the money make me fly like a kite. I wish that money make me fly like a kite.
Fresh like the sea, Bora Uhai, c'est la vie. All of these roads lead you to me. Make me spend all my money for peace and quiet mystery. Forbidden fruit is out of reach. I've got a hunch, a certainty. You make me spend all my money. Dice, a slap on the cheek, the thrill of the chase ends in defeat. If we are survivors, then we try harder. Most of my life I've been asleep. Who will I hold? Who will I keep? All of this talk is way too deep. I need to spend all my money.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio.
I think, when people dream about like their futures, I'm like, for me, my future is whoever I meet those had better be the words you tell me. If you're not coming to tell me to spend all your money, leave me alone. Okay? My biggest problem in this life is that I have to work for a living. That's my biggest problem. Okay? So if you just come and you're like, hey, I got money, you can spend it. Ah, Nivo, don't worry. I will learn to love you. Don't worry about other things. You should not worry yourself about other things. That was Spend My Money by Tetushani and Labdi. Let's get into the threads because there's a lot that's been happening this morning. First of all, I think I think we should take like a moment of silence for Jambi Koikai. If you do not know who Jambi is, Jambi Fire Mama. Jambi was such a... It's insane that now we're talking about Jambi in past tense, man. Like, Jambi was such a loving person. She was such a beautiful soul. She fought so hard. She was so vocal about what she was going through. She really brought to light. Let me tell you, I won't lie to you. Before Jambi, I didn't know much about endometriosis and like how insane it can be. And I remember like thinking the first time I learned about it, I remember thinking of all the girls I was with in high school who couldn't function when they were on their periods, and they had to be like laid up in bed for 3-4 days, had to miss classes. I remember we used to get hot water bottles, and like during breaks we'd go take them hot water. You go to the kitchen, get hot water, take it to someone because they're in so much pain. And when she started talking about it, because for me I've been very lucky. Periods, I don't get cramps, I don't get anything. So it was insane to me that other people were like experiencing so much pain to the point that they couldn't function, they couldn't do anything. And then now, like with time, start learning about all these things and all these conditions, and you're like, why does no one talk about this? When we're in class and we're doing biology and we're being taught about all these other things, why does this not come up? Like, are women not worthy of the studies that can help save their lives? Because the one thing that is so disturbing about the standard of medical care in the world, and not just in Kenya, it's a global problem, is the fact that women are never considered. When they do tests for drugs, they don't do them on women. When they do research on things, they don't do them on women. And these things they affect us. And when it comes to even research on things that affect women, it takes women getting into those spaces to start doing that kind of work, and not forgetting the gatekeeping that happens. I'm like, the fact that Jambi was fighting and crying out for help to her last breath. Literally, like, imagine like your final tweet being like you pleading with the president to do something about a condition that's like really taking you down. I'm like, it's a sad day. It's a really sad day for this country. We've lost a warrior. We've lost someone who has put their life out there for us to learn and hopefully do better. So I think we should definitely take like a moment of silence just in recognition of Jambi. I don't know how long a moment usually is, because mine might go on for a while. But wherever you are today, I think I'd say just let the fight not end with her. Let's keep fighting for these things, because women are dying. Women are dying like every day. And that's insane, if we're being honest. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And something needs to be done. We need more research. We need like something actionable that can help people. Even something as simple as getting the diagnosis in good time. It took 17 years for Jambi to get her diagnosis. 17 years. And because of how late that was, it also affected the kind of treatment she'd get. Because maybe if it had been in need earlier on, if she'd gotten her diagnosis earlier on, maybe the treatment would have also started earlier on and it would have been easier or something. But the fact that it also took 17 years for her to get a diagnosis, that's also a problem. It shows the gaps that need to be filled when it comes to healthcare in this country and in the world, especially for women. So we'll take a moment. It's going to be a couple of seconds. It's complete silence. And yeah. May Jambi continue to live in our hearts and in the work that we do moving forward as Kenyan women in these spaces where we try to shine some light on reproductive health issues. Right now, before we now talk about everything else, let's listen to Fire on Fire, and then I'll be right back.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Late in the night, you said you text me by night. All this is mad. It's like I'm reading your mind, but you got me twisted. Thinking about you, I'm wasted. I want all of you when it's selfish. It's like I'm running impatient. Baby, open the door. I'm running crazy. Oh, you're racing in my thoughts. It's getting shady. Oh, fire on fire. But you give me power. And when you're next to me, all I wanna do is sing. Oh, sight of your eyes, for me sense, didn't realize you all I needed. Fill on my cups, you pour me life. When you're ready, I'm ready for you. I've been waiting for you. I already told you, you're the one I want. Whenever you're ready, hit up my phone. Johnny make a daddy. Siwezi control. Baby, open the door. I'm running crazy. Oh, you're racing in my thoughts. It's getting shady. Oh, fire on fire. But you give me power. And when you're next to me, all I wanna do is sing. Oh,
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Hey, okay, Sawa. I have regained a bit of composure. Let's get into the threads. There's a couple of things that have been happening. One of them, of course, is now following the passing of Jambi. People are talking about endometriosis, which for me that's a good thing. Let's talk about it. I have a friend who has dealt with endometriosis as a problem as well. And it has gotten to a point where she was literally considering having her uterus removed because it's really bad. And I understand there's different, I don't want to say versions. There's different ways that endometriosis manifests in the body. It doesn't always manifest the same exact way for every single person. So I like that people are having conversations. And I think this is something that I said on Monday, and I'm going to reiterate it today. I love that nowadays, the fact that we have access to things like social media, and the internet, it makes it easier for people to share their experiences, to help other people either learn or just pick something from that, whatever it may be. But I appreciate that as much as the internet can have so many negative things that go on and terrible things that happen, that at the same time we have some really good things that have come out of it, especially for women, because women can build community and share with each other in terms of things that they deal with, so that other people don't feel so alone. And I'm appreciative of that. So one of the trending topics this particular, the last since yesterday into today, is definitely endometriosis. So I like that people are having conversations, people are talking about it. There's another story that I'm not a big fan of talking about things, but or about people specifically. But there's certain things that if they affect women, or if they're about women, or if they shed light on how women are treated in general, regardless of who the person is, I'm going to mention it. So there's this clip that's been going around about a Kenyan scriptwriter and an influencer. And he was talking about how when he was doing this particular show back in the day, in the early 2000s, he was an actor on the show, and there was one other actor who was a female actor, and he'd tried to. So in her acting, she had boundaries where she didn't want to do like kissing scenes. There are certain scenes that she didn't want to do. I know there are actors out here who usually have certain boundaries where they say, I'm not going to kiss anyone on this set. I don't want to be touched a certain way. So these are my boundaries. So as you're writing your script, make sure that you please respect my boundaries. And he talks about how he'd tried, I don't know, like hitting on her or something like that. Sorry, the clip is disgusting. It's a bunch of men laughing. And, there's a bunch of men laughing. Trust me, it's nothing good. So that's my personal opinion. Take it how you want. So he goes ahead to say that then on his final episode on the show, he gets a chance to write the script. And the first thing this man does is make sure to write one of the boundaries that this woman had stated. And he inserts himself then, is like, I'm the one she's going to kiss on this particular set, and puts it in the script, in the story. And I think the thing that pissed me off about that particular clip is it's like he revels in the fact that he got to do that. It's like it's a power play thing. And there's people who are laughing about it and they're like, yeah, win is, and I'm thinking, someone communicated a boundary, and then you are like, the moment you got, instead of respecting that boundary, you are like, I'm going to break it as much as I can. And then now this many years later, almost 20 plus years later, you're here talking about it like it's a proud thing. It's a proud moment for you. For me, that's very disturbing. So he's currently trending. If you want to see what that's about, you can go on social media. For me, I think it's the way people are not seeing the problem in that clip, the way these people are just laughing like it's a funny thing, it's a joke. I'm like, you violated someone's boundaries. And you are like, yeah, I'll just blame it on the script. I'll just say, hey, but it's in the story. So yeah, it doesn't matter. It's something I had communicated that I don't want to do. And now, because you are in a position of power over me in this particular instance, you're going to force me to do something that I don't want to do. That's also called abuse. Another thing that's happening on social media, there's this other clip where there's MPs who are just like having a conversation and they're talking about how they haven't read. One of them is talking about how he hasn't read the finance bill. These are the people who are supposed to go vote on it in parliament. And he's proudly telling these people how, ati, unajua mi finance bill hata sijaisoma. And in my head, I'm thinking, isn't that like in your JD? Because what are you going to go vote for? Yeah, we know you people go vote along political lines, along political party lines, along tribal lines, along who has put money in my pocket type lines, who do I have an alliance to type of line. But for you to stand in front of a camera and actually say that, and the thing that is also disturbing about this particular video is the way people are reacting to it. I think sometimes when people say we have the leaders we deserve, I see it. Because in the comment section, What we're saying are people saying, at least he's being honest. What do you mean at least? We need to stop behaving like bare minimum type things. Or at least he's being honest. That's not a good thing. It's literally his job to read and seek out the things or the parts of this bill that it's his JD. That's what he's a representative. He's not just standing there as one person. He's representing an entire constituency of people, thousands and thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, or millions even. But he's over there like, yeah, it's not a big deal. And for me, that's a problem. We should never say, at least this, at least that. No, if you have to say, at least this and this, that means then the job wasn't done. At least he's being honest. And his honesty will do absolutely nothing for us. Absolutely nothing. It does nothing for us other than tell us that it's not just him. There's a bunch of people just like him who are going to pass a bill that they've not read, regardless of how it's going to affect us. A bunch of us have read this bill, and we've seen the issues with it. There's things where you're like, I don't even understand. And you ask someone to explain and they clarify. And you're like, that doesn't even make sense. Why the hell would someone do that? But then the person who's supposed to understand, you are literally, like, the whole point of being an MP is you're in the legislature. It's your job to pass bills. But then now what you're saying is, yeah, these things just come, and then depending on the majority or depending on the people I like and the side they're on, that's how I vote. That is a problem, and it's a major problem, and we should look at it in that manner. We should see it as a problem. That's how we're supposed to see it. Don't be like, at least he's being honest. Who cares how honest he's being? He still hasn't read the damn thing, and he's still going to go and vote. And him voting for or against affects millions of Kenyans, all of us. So we shouldn't be so quick to be like, unless he's being honest. That's total nonsense. That is big, big nonsense. Another story, we talked about this on Monday, and it was about the kid that got into an altercation with a police officer. So he got arrested. They found him, and they're charging him with a bunch of different things, one of them being a robbery with violence. He's 19 years old, so I was right to call him a kid. 19 years old. Charges are coming like robbery with violence, obstruction of something, refusing. What is that other one? When you refuse to get arrested. That one. And one, like, I still think we failed this person. Secondly, there's someone who brought out a very interesting point, a counterpoint. And they said that seeing that officer who's undergone training and all those things through taxpayers' money could not defend himself against a 19-year-old shows that there's a problem as well in that situation, because he's expected to protect us, but he couldn't even protect himself from a child. And I was like, you know what? Yes, there's a flaw in the system as well. And there's also the fact that people keep ignoring the fact that this kid was defending himself against a system that has also been built against him. He himself said this man was asking for bribes, and he was asking for more than the kid had. And then now they're lying at Sijui he stole the charger for the police something, whatnot. Sijui he stole the phone worth 50,000 shillings. That cop does not. I'm sorry, I'm being judgy, but that's a lie. Anyone can see that that's a lie. So they've just like added like trumped up charges. And basically they just want to ruin this kid's life. And I'm like, I wish they had this kind of zeal when it comes to cops who go around actually murdering people, beating up youth and shooting them for no reason, and beating up people and motorists on the road. When I tell you, hey, this country, sijui tutafanya nini, because where we are, they're not giving. If we're being honest, they're really, really not giving. Another story that has caught my attention this morning is the fact that we talked about this on Monday as well, that evictions and demolitions are still going on in places like Mathare, Mukuru. And the guys there are wondering if the same fate is going to befall the people who also live on riparian land, but in affluent areas. The guys in Runda and such, who I told you on Monday, they were getting pumps from Kengen to remove water from their houses, those particular people. So there's someone who brought out something very important, and it's that thing when you're talking about like being tired and being exhausted in this country. So in regards to that story, they said that this should be the biggest story right now, but the government has launched an all-out assault on the people's bandwidth. We're dealing with the finance bill, Ruto and Gachagua drama, the US trip, the 200 million jet. There's no closure on the fake fertilizer issue, etc. Not forgetting there's the vaccine thingies. Don't forget the people who are carried by floods and lost their homes. So there's so many things that we're dealing with. So this person is equating this to death by 1,000 cuts. And it's saying that the government is intentionally exhausting us with so many things that we don't even have the emotional capacity or bandwidth to deal with all the issues that are just like coming our way, because it's so much. There's so much happening that we have to sort of start thinking, which one do we prioritize? Which one do we focus on? And let me tell you, there's a problem. There's a big problem somewhere. And I don't know what we're going to do, man. I don't know. But that's it from the threads. So I'll see you after this as we go through the papers.
Pawa Radio. Tune in and power up.
I'm in love with you, and it's forever, forever. I'm in love with you, and it's forever, forever. Oh baby, I'm in love. I'm in love with you forever. Baby, I'm in love. I'm in love with you forever, forever. Uwe mwanga au giza, moyoni pangu pawe kwako, miniwe wako. Usiwe mbali nami, ujisikie uko nyumbani. Miniwe wako.
Weta wone, dirio kenya dotatawe. Weta ukwera tinoe, koro ya kwako hewoye. Yothe weta wone, dirio kenya dotatawe. Weta ukwera tinoe, koro ya kwako hewoye. Yothe
I'm in love. I'm in love with you forever. Baby, I'm in love. I'm in love with you forever, forever.
Nisho, Seteli Melly, we go. Love everywhere, takwa corridors. Just you and I, Pensy bicycle. Yeah. You know, inawasha wengine tadimo. Adonyo mesimama taitimo. Wewe sukari, asali. Wenda wole, dirio kenya detetawe. Wenda wakwera tinoe, koro ya koko hewoye. Yonde, wenda wole, dirio kenya detetawe. Wenda wakwera tinoe, koro ya koko hewoye. Yonde.
With you, and it's forever, forever. I'm in love with you, and it's forever, forever. Baby, I'm in love. I'm in love with you forever. Baby, I'm in love. I'm in love with you forever, forever.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
That is for Reva, or was for Reva, by, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Prishon, and Wanjine. So let's get into the papers. So one of the things I have which paper is this? I have the Daily Nation open in front of me, and the page that I'm on is actually it's disturbing my soul on a couple of levels. There's a story here about Charlene Ruto steps on toes with shoes drive for schools. So apparently she was in Ukambani, and she's handing out schools to students in primary school. And there's a quote here from the MP of Kitui East saying that they have come up with a funny program of distributing oversized plastic shoes in our primary schools. These shoes are of poor quality. And so people are criticizing her and taking those oversized, poor quality plastic shoes to schools and giving them to students. My problem with this story is a half pager on the Daily Nation on page 10. And I'm like, this woman's accomplishment is being the president's daughter. That's it. She doesn't have like a job. She doesn't do anything. All she does is she rides on the name of her father and the fact that she's the president's daughter. That's it. And I was like, there's so many issues that are happening right now that deserve to be in the spotlight, that deserve to be in the newspaper, but they're not. Like literally that story about demolitions in Mukuru. They're dropping buildings. Buildings are being collapsed in seconds. But that's not in the papers. But this chick and her shoe drive is getting a half pager in a major paper. Why? Why? This could have been a tweet, by the way. You didn't have to. It's very disturbing for me because when we look at issues that are affecting people and the people who talk about them, the people who are in charge or who are supposed to be bringing light to these things, they don't bring light to these things. You're instead focusing on other things. And that's very disturbing to me. Another story here that's like this one, I think, yeah. So KFCB has retweeted with the thing they were doing for content creators. So they had sort of tried to bring this new thing where we were supposed to have, they said that content creators who create content on YouTube need to have licenses, 1, and 2, you need to submit your content for approval before you post it. And I was like, first of all, how is that even sustainable? Let's just start there. How is that sustainable? Mnashindwa kupatia the few films. It's such a long process for the few films that are shot in this country by Kenyan filmmakers. I've worked in the industry, so I know. It takes so much to get feedback on those things and scripts, and people send you scripts and they send you all these things, and it takes forever. But you think someone who creates content on YouTube and creates content on a daily basis, you think that's what you're going to manage? Do you even have the capacity for that? Secondly, what happened to freedom of speech? What happened to freedom of expression? Because that's what happens in these videos. Yeah? Oh, yeah, you didn't think of that, I'm sure. So it's like they're trying to go the China way with the whole, I don't know, like restrictions on the kind of content that can be posted. And I'm like, do you know the number of content creators in this country? Because, yeah, there's the ones that everyone know. Do you know how many content creators exist in this country? Hamna capacity. Stop trying to insert yourself in places you have no business being in the first place. One of the things I really, 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 and I'm going to use this is a strong word to use, hate about this country, is the fact that they never provide opportunities for people. Then when people go out of their way to create opportunities for themselves, these guys come in and now they're like, oh, we want to regulate this. Oh, we want to earn from this. Oh, you didn't even create those opportunities for people. You sat on your hands. And then you're thinking, how can we gain from this? Kidogo, they'll start charging us for licenses to create content in this country. You'll start charging us for creating content on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, because you'll be like, if people are earning from that, we should also find another way to earn from them. We're already paying taxes and you're misusing that to begin with. What more do you want from us? It's very exhausting. So anyway, there's a story here. This is in the Standard, page 14, and it's an opinion piece. It says KFCB's retreat doesn't imply victory for content creators. It's a whole story. It's like a full pager. And they say that the move by the KFCB chairperson to recall the notices might have offered temporary relief. However, it should not be viewed as a victory by content creators. Back in 2016, I was one of the people who launched a full-on campaign against KFCB when they were trying to introduce the film and stage play. They were trying to do like a recall of the Cap 22, and they were trying to introduce some insane rules and regulations again. And some right now, the things that you're trying to enforce, these things were added into the Constitution in 1963. And do you know why they were added there? Because they were for censorship purposes. They were added there to protect the colonizer, because they didn't want us to talk about the things that they had done. But now you want to do the same thing now. Yeah, so much for progress and years of independence and everything in between. Yay, look at us. We are so free. Here is Njirai with OTD.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
It's been a long time, Nikama. You're moving on fine, Ataka. Well, could you home sometime? We sip some wine, and if it's fine, after I'll make you sing a love song. I promise you will sing it with me all night long. I know you know, I feel away. I wanna say, baby, nah. Ukitaka feature, ashika simu niko. I've been waiting, ni kweli. I think about you on the daily. Ni kama nilizama, nikashikwa tu na tamaa. Ay baby, ni kweli. I think about you on the daily. Story nimesikia, ulikuwa fun times na Lydia. I know your lies, so I don't mind a compromise. Ni wewe niko after, rasta master, OG gangster. Nivutie faster, nirudie tafadhali. Each day is the same, I call your name, so ukitaka feature, hayashika. I've been waiting, ni kweli. I think about you on the daily. Ni kama nilizama, nikashikwa tu na tamaa. Ay baby, ni kweli. I think about you on the daily. Think about you on the daily. I think about you on the daily.
Jack on the beat.
They say on drugs, I say on me. They say it's sad, I say it's funny. You with some crap, don't you dare call me, cause I know that I can get you out this shit. I know it's weird that I'm quite honest, but if I don't, then who's gonna know? When mama said, don't you play with fire, you should listen and just move on my way. I've got this feeling if someone's on me. I've got this feeling if someone's on me, yeah. Someone's on me. Ooh, someone's on me, someone's on me. Yeah, 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 someone's on me. Oh, someone's on me, someone's on me. Cause I'm a drug, can you run me? And I'm a drug that I just cannot resist. Someone's on me, ooh, someone's on me. Once you begin, but there's no ending. Oh boy, it's like If you're up or falling out at the end of the tunnel, well, not here. The end is near, I feel it coming. This is between you and I only. When mama said, don't you play with fire, you should listen, it just provide my way. I've got this feeling, it's someone's on me. I've got this feeling, it's someone's on me. Someone's on me. Ooh, someone's on me, someone's on me. Yeah, someone's on me. Ooh, someone's on me. 'Cause I'm a drug, and you're a man. And I'm a drug that you just cannot resist. Someone's on me. Someone's on me. Someone's on me. Someone's on me. Yeah. And I'm a drug that you just cannot resist. Someone's on me.
Pawa Radio. Tune in and power up.
Drug by Bridget Blue. And of course, before that, we were listening to Njerai with OTD. Yeah, I think today these things are just making me angry. And I'm really trying my best not to be angry. Another thing that actually made me angry a bit is there's a story in the paper. And okay, so this one it's more like just erasure. It speaks to how erasure happens. There was a story, which one of these papers was it? Basically, they're talking about the passing of Njambi. But it's the way the headline is written that I had a problem with, because it just, here it says, Njambi Koikai dies after long, torturous battle with lung growth. Njambi was battling endometriosis. The endometriosis is what was growing in different parts of her body, of her organs, including her lungs. It had gotten to the point where it was growing on her teeth. That's how bad it had become. Like different parts of her. So it's like sometimes I feel like we don't treat matters that affect women with enough delicateness and care as we do with other things. Things that affect women and children, they're puzzwad. It's like they don't carry as much weight. It's very disturbing, extremely disturbing, to be honest. I don't want to say I'm not feeling numb. I'm feeling a lot of emotions. The problem is when it's a lot of emotions and you can't tell which emotions you're feeling in that moment. It's been an emotional couple of weeks for me, to be honest. There's been a lot of stuff happening. A lot of death, a lot of loss, and then that on top of everything else that's happening. There's someone, I think I closed that. There was a doctor who was talking about how our bodies store, yes, I found it, emotions. So, there's this saying that people usually say, the body keeps the score, right? And there's someone who rewrote it, and they wrote it in such a beautiful manner. I shared it to someone, so I'm going to share it with you. I should be able to find it. It says, the way they shared it, made so much sense. It said that instead of thinking of it as, I prefer the phrasing, our body holds our stories, over the body keeps the score. Our body is intelligent and stores whatever it can't process in real time to address it when it has more capacity. This is less of keeping a score against you and more of keeping you safe and alive, in that moment. A friend of mine was talking to me about how there's this time they went for an assessment and they went to see a certain doctor. And when they saw the doctor, It's a a practitioner who deals with wellness like as a whole. He just doesn't go like, or she, of course it's a woman. She doesn't just look at you and go like, "Ati unaumwa kichwa? Shika dawa." It's more like, okay, let's see what's causing that. And it's like you keep going back until you actually find the root cause of things. And when this person was recommended to me, was I was talking to my friend, and my friend was telling me about how when she went to see this particular doctor, and the doctor was like, let's talk about your life journey and some of the things you've dealt with. And when she was talking about like her life, the doctor was just looking at her and was like, wow, you've really dealt with a lot of trauma, and all these things are stored up in your body, and now we need to figure out how to release them so that your body is trying to keep you safe. So what it does is that it will hold on to certain resources when it's not getting them, because it knows it needs them. So if you don't feed it certain things, it will hold on to the little reserve that it has. We've seen these stories when people talk about how if you start starving yourself because you're trying to lose weight, you end up gaining weight. It's because your body holds on to what it has, because it's like, oh, if you're not going to give us, we're going to hold on to what we have and see how far it can push us. So our bodies are always rooting for us, even when we're dealing with stuff. And sometimes I was talking to my therapist last week, and she told me one of the things is that when we hold on to things, or when we don't deal with things and we just store them and we'll deal with you later, and we don't deal with them, they start manifesting in our bodies in form of sicknesses and in different forms. And there was someone who I saw who was talking about, I think it was on Twitter or Instagram, it's a therapist, and they were talking about how sometimes certain things like anxiety and depression, not always, but sometimes they are a manifestation of anger that has been held in the body. So it's like when you've held on to so much anger, it's like it just keeps piling up. Sometimes it manifests itself as anxiety, it can manifest itself as depression, and a myriad of other things. So there's this doctor who did a whole thread, and I think we can share it. I'll share a link with my producer, and we can have the link in the description box of this video and on the whatever, where you find the after the thing. It will be linked below if you're listening to this later when the show is not live. So it's a thread, and they're breaking down something they've learned, which used to be there traditionally. People used to know about this, but it's like with time, it's like sometimes we forget certain things. So it says, the first part of the thread just says, various traditions say that emotions are stored in specific organs. According to traditional Chinese medicine, our lungs store our grief. Yesterday in practice, I had the starkest example of this and that I've ever felt. So, and then now they talk about like the patient and how grief had manifested on their lungs, and how even in trying to help them through that. So there's different organs in our body that hold on different emotions. So you see, like they're saying traditionally, they say grief is held by the lungs, and then you'd find like a different type of like guilt is held somewhere else, anger is held somewhere else, and then they manifest in terms of pain. Like with this one, they're talking about the patient had severe pain on their right rib cage and they had and the shoulder, and then the tension was primarily in the parental pleura of the lung. I don't know what that means, which was adhered to the posterior something. They start talking about other things, but point is, they're saying they were feeling that pain in the rib cage, and then they tried to help, and then when they realized it was a grief thing, they tried to work through the grief, and almost instantaneously the pain subsided. No medication, no nothing. So when it comes to like things like emotions and stuff, I'm trying to learn a bit more. I'm also trying to learn about different names for different emotions. I've also realized that like sometimes we have emotions by different names, and sometimes we're so used to like the usual. I feel anger, I feel love, I feel fear. But then there's so many other emotions, and there's even like, you can Google, there's an emotion chart. And when you look at the emotions, it can tell you, if you think about the things you're feeling, when you're feeling them, it can tell you the name of the emotion that you're actually feeling. Sometimes you might think it's anger, but it's not. It's something completely different. So I think the more we know, the better. Here is Fee with Nyamaza before we get into the second half of the show.
Pawa Radio. Tune in and power up.
See, it's just my opinion. Usiku nitalala. Put my phone on my pillow. Na kifo nishafanya. Ya jirani tuseme. Na ya kwetu ya fichwe. Twende kwake timasta. Tunywe chai mchana. Power of life and death is in the town. Hide my identity, haifichi your heart. Mungu nifunze kunyamaza, 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 Mungu nifunze kunyamaza. Hutamani kulia yakienda kushoto, msalaba dunia, sisi sote twabeba. Who are you gonna run to when they don't wanna see you? Juma neno ni sumu, wengi imehukumu. Power of life and death is in your tongue. Hide my identity, haifichi your heart. Mungu nifunze kunyamaza, 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 Mungu nifunze. Oh, Mungu nifunze kunyamaza, Mungu nifunze kunyamaza, Mungu nifunze kunyamaza, twaumizana. Mungu nifunze kunyamaza, Mungu nifunze kunyamaza, kunyamaza.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
So we are now getting into the second half of the show. You know what that means? We get into a conversation. Today we'll be talking about abortion in Kenya, and we'll be talking about what does the law say, the constitution, biases, accessibility, and everything in between, the stigma, discrimination. And then we'll also be talking about like the constitution versus the penal code. Like where do we fall and how do we move on from here? So that's going to be the conversation that we'll be having today. As usual, when we get to the 12 o'clock mark, I usually have to play you some jams that I'm feeling. And since today is Wednesday, OnlyFans is still going to be in there, despite the fact that we're not in an OnlyFans mood today. But you know what? It's okay. It's the thought that counts, okay? Remember, we're still on social media. Power Radio is the handle. I will see you after OnlyFans.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Maisha ina stress but sitachoka. Manake mimi staya mimi nyota. Mungu peke ndio mimi nitaogopa. Get back 'cause unachoma choma choma choma. Daily na meremeta, form yangu ni kutesa. Usikol kama si pesa, bade na chipele. Mandela, Dombola, Mandem, and lose composure. We catch your flies, now feelings. Play out to the dance for ceiling. Don't waste my time. Don't miss my energy. Don't kill my vibe. Don't miss my energy. Let's say goodbye. Just fly around with me. Let's spend some time. Just spend some time with me.
Feeling important, feeling like something is coming all over me. Feel like a soldier, feel like I'm going to war with the enemy. I've gotten older, I'm very comfortable with my identity. It's never over. I'm ready, I'm willing, I'm willing. I'm feeling hypnotized, I'm feeling like a child. I need to realize I'm feeling so alive. I take off my disguise and I get myself the prize. I don't mean to be shy. All I can do is try.
Don't waste my time. Don't miss my energy. Don't kill my vibe. Don't miss my energy. Let's say goodbye. Just fly around with me. Let's spend some time. Just spend some time with me.
Some people search and seek until they find the light. Some people think that everything they think is right. Some people don't believe in peace, they want to fight. Some people not my type, some people not the vibe.
Shangilia, pango yote imepangiliwa. Shida yetu yote tatuliwa. Maisha yetu imebarikiwa. Shangilia, pango yote imepangiliwa. Shida yetu yote tatuliwa. Maisha yetu imebarikiwa.
You say you like Ologomba, baby turn around and pull up to me bumper. Your skin smooth like Jojoba. Ati wanafanya nini? Wanaogopa. Dark skin and not Georgia. Melanin all over. Nobody can boga. Well, they tried sometime back in November. They really didn't think I would remember. Sahi, my confidence in my rise. I never used to be like this before. I used to be so damn insecure. I had to go a dark skin Milana. Hey, that's all we can love. Nothing ever sweet like coco. Get on the dance floor, make them loco. You say you like Ologomba, baby turn around and pull up to me bumper. Your skin smooth like Jojoba. Ati wanafanya nini? Wanaogopa. Dark skin and not Georgia. Melanin all over. Nobody can boga. You say you like Ologomba, baby turn around and pull up to me bumper. Your skin smooth like Jojoba. Ati wanafanya nini? Wanaogopa. Dark skin and not Georgia. Melanin all over. Nobody can boga. You don't know how I like your confidence. The way you walk, how you talk, it's evident. Black is the beauty, so more for them, so more for them. You are a star, brown skin, una kill. Oh, show them who you are. You are a star, brown skin, una kill. Oh, show them who you are. You like a loco, mba. You like that toto, like
toto star. You like all loco, like all loco, 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 mba. You like that toto, like that toto, toto, toto star. You like all loco, like all loco, 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 mba. You like that toto. Like that toto star. You like a loco, like a loco, mba. You like that toto star. Hello, niggas blowing up my phone. Usini hala kama huna phone. Mnani choke, mnani kabako. Hello, nyiribetinde wa yudogi mawadwaro. Werigi jogi gidwa promises of life. Werigi jogi do machinjia online. Vijana wa Nairobi msinilete ufala, ndio manami huishingi hatungepatana. Ukinikata mara moja wezi nitamalaya. And you're telling everybody that this Gucci's on fire. Only fans, penye mefika nafungua only fans. Kauna nipenda tuma fare in advance. Penye mefika no romance with no finance. Only fans, yeah, yeah. Only fans. Penye mefika nafungua only fans. Kauna nipenda tuma fare in advance. Penye mefika no romance with no finance. Only fans, yeah, yeah.
Hello, ladies blowing up my phone. Akibien, you are so bomb. Wakituma fare twakuja kwako. Oh yo, steady grinding all night long. Na sikuji kasi form ya door. Itabidi ukanje ndo tupige show. Ukisikia sauti solo jue ni kubaya. Hii muziki ya Kenya twaipeleka Ulaya. Na temperature inapanda warazi wanakwaya. Tutashinda magrami before tumeretire. Mise only fans, walimefika natambua only fans. Kanika kitu mutumia only fans. Walimefika nafanyia only fans. Only fans, yeah, yeah, only fans. Walimefika natambua only fans. Kanika kitu mutumia only fans. Walimefika mutambua only fans. Only fans, yeah, yeah.
You took my time.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Ndio hiyo OnlyFans yangu. Sijui at this rate sijui tutafikishana wapi na hii gava. Tumesikia watu wanaenda kuvotia finance bill, they don't even know what's in it, so as always, we're screwed. That has never changed. This half of the show is going to focus on today's conversation, and the conversation we'll be having today is about abortion. It is something that people don't like talking about. It's something watu wanatakanga, if we talk about it, ongea kichini chini, do it in private. You don't have to be so loud. But whether we like it or not, the truth is abortion is part of reproductive health, whether you like it or not. It is part of something that is part of society. It is a part of society. It is something that happens. And just because you talk about it chini ya maji, without, in harsh tones, in private, in coded language doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. The reason we even talk about abortion, the times we talk about abortion, 90% of the time, it's because people are talking about botched abortions, unsafe abortions that end up leading into deaths. They end up maiming people. And like, I think the last time there was a huge conversation around abortion was because we had a quack doctor in downtown who was offering, and he wasn't even like, and when you say quack doctor, we shouldn't even say a quack doctor. He was just a quack cosplaying as a doctor. And then he was just doing random things to people. The funny thing about abortion, I remember when I was younger, I used to think that abortion was just, like when you read about other things, they're like, it's just a normal thing. It's not a nini. And then you start hearing the way people talk about it and you're like, but me, I think maybe it's the kind of place I grew up in as well. It's like, I thought it's just like one of the options that are offered. It's like, it's just a straightforward thing. It's like, for instance, the same way you would go somewhere and you're asked, do you want this or this? And then you say, no, I want this. I thought that was what people perceived it to be. But then as I grew older, I learned that it was a very stigmatized thing. And from the stigma, there was like a lot of shunning and shame that came to people who had procured an abortion in their life for whatever reason. There was always like just some disdain when people would talk about people who had procured abortions. And I remember like thinking, I didn't understand why, because I was just like, but if someone didn't, like, it's not computing. It's like, if you don't want to be pregnant, if you don't want to be a parent, and then it has happened for whatever reason, see, that's the option. And like I mentioned on Monday, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that I think sometimes is intentionally done to just scare people. And it comes down to things like, so when I talk abortions, I would rather talk about safe abortions, but we'll talk about abortions in general. There's safe abortions and, of course, there's unsafe abortions. We're going to talk about what does the Constitution say about it. There's a penal code that criminalizes abortion in this country. What does that mean? And how does that play a part? We're going to talk about the stigma and discrimination that comes from that. We are also going to talk about accessibility. And then also, in the end, it's like, where do we go from here? That's basically how we are structuring today's conversation. So I think maybe the first thing, I should probably just start with the definition of abortion. It's the easiest thing. And I'm just going to read it off Google because, so an abortion is the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy, most often performed during the first 28 weeks of pregnancy. Number 2, an object or undertaking that is unpleasant or badly made or carried out. It's like when you say abort mission. So number 2 does not apply to this particular conversation. It's interesting that they've added. This is very, very interesting. They've added other terms that are considered to be quote unquote similar. I'm saying quote unquote because there's a third term here that I'm just like, please, this is not a thing, but okay. So the first one says it's termination. The second one is miscarriage. And the third one is feticide, which I'm guessing is the deconstruction. It says the destruction or abortion of a fetus. That is the definition of feticide, which I think that is very, it's giving agenda, but that's a personal opinion because it's very, very, it's like the act of causing death of a fetus. I think that's very different because wouldn't the fetus have to be alive for me to cause it death to begin with? Again, semantics, but wouldn't it have to be alive for me to cause it death? So this goes back into that thing I was saying, like discrimination and stigma. This is how it starts. There's also a lot of propaganda when it comes to abortion. That's much I can tell you. So then the other term that they've used is termination, which is like when people say you terminate a pregnancy. Miscarriage, I don't think miscarriage should be considered similar, because with an abortion, the first word is deliberate. Miscarriages are not often deliberate. You can have a miscarriage that has been induced because maybe the fetus is not viable or there's something. Or you can be like where your womb is not viable to hold a pregnancy, and so it just, terminates it on its own. So miscarriages are not, I don't think they should fall under, the word is not the same as abortion because it's not a deliberate action that is taken. That's according to my understanding. Their definition of miscarriage is the spontaneous or unplanned. You see the difference? Because an INI is planned, an abortion can be planned. Because it's a deliberate thing, you have to plan for it. The spontaneous or unplanned expulsion of a fetus from the womb before it is able to survive independently. So that is the NINI, the definition of miscarriage. So now that we have the terms out of the way, let's go back to the thing that I want to talk about, and that is what the landscape of abortion in Kenya, what the Constitution says, and enforcing, because there's the constitutional obligation to provide access to legal abortion services as per the Constitution that was passed in 2010. But then we have a penal code from 1963 that criminalizes all abortion and also abortion care. So the reason I wanted to have this conversation is because I'm curious to know what's the intersection and also what are we following? Are we following the 2010? Should it be reviewed? Should it be revisited? And maybe just remove the penal code that was added in 1963 that criminalizes abortion. So let's get into it. Okay, yeah, we're about to get into the thing of the thing. So here is Lelaika, and then now let's get into the meat of the thing and the thing.
Pawa Radio.
No, you had my life. Sungeni ambi amapema. And no lie. Sigurani tumechana. 'Cause in a way, you were everything I lacked. Sasa nawaza kila siku, mbona hukuwa mwaminifu? I scratch your back and try to be true, but it just feels like a game to you. Wafanya penzi liyo mchezo, vile wanicheza. Nisi uwanja wa mchezo, mbona wanicheza? Wafanya penzi liwe mchezo, oh, vile wanicheza. Nisi uwanja wa mchezo, mbona wanicheza?
Hujawahi ona mwingine na macho, akina nani wanakujaza mawazo, tukisonga wanaturudisha mwanzo. Baby, siwezi kucheza, 'cause I'm all in, falling for you, even when they calling, nakata 'cause I'm loyal. Why you walking out the door knowing I adore you? Baby, siwezi kucheza. Haya mapenzi siwezi kucheza, usiuacha wa mchezo, siwezi kucheza. Haya mapenzi si mchezo, siwezi kucheza, usiuacha wa mchezo, siwezi kucheza.
Wafanya penzi liwe mchezo,
siwezi kucheza.
nisi uwanja wa mchezo,
Siwezi kucheza, haya mapenzi si mchezo, siwezi kucheza.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
In 2010, Kenya voted to adopt a new constitution that recognizes health as a fundamental right, which includes abortion, post-abortion care, and emergency medical treatment. Although the Kenya's constitution established the right to health care and access to reproductive health services more than a decade ago, abortion has remained inaccessible throughout the country. Contrary to the constitution's protections, Kenya's 1963 Penal Code continues to criminalize all abortion care. That's the conversation we're having today. We are having a conversation about abortion in Kenya, what the landscape looks like. Over the years, there's people who found themselves arrested because of, one, procuring an abortion, or two, it's called administering one, or being a medical practitioner who carries out an abortion. There's also been cases where institutions that offer abortion and post-abortion care are targeted directly. We're not going to name them. If you know them, yeah. And they would get targeted directly because they offer the services, to the point where, like this, the way you can call and like book an appointment over the phone to see your doctor. Now with these institutions, you can't do that. Like, you have to show up in person. They have to do like the test, because sometimes officers of the quote unquote law or government officials or people who are trying to entrap them will call in disguise to try and get that, and then come. Then there's the issues of extortion. There's the issues of intimidating the people who run the facilities, the caregivers and such. So it has become, that's what has made it very inaccessible. So now over the years, there's been like people who've taken, who've gone to court to fight like different, there's been different cases in court in regards to abortion in Kenya. And there's been a bunch of victories in line with this. There's different courts in different parts of the country that have affirmed that abortion is a fundamental right under the Constitution of Kenya. But then there's other places, I guess, thanks to biases, depending on the judge who's listening to the case and stuff like that. There are certain biases that also come into play. One of the biggest biases that I think plays a huge role is religion, where people will insert their own religious beliefs when it comes to their thoughts on abortion. And I'm like, the funniest, or the most ridiculous thing is when people go like, but the Bible says, and I'm like, you're assuming I live my life according to what the Bible says, or according to whatever book you want to quote says. And I think at that point it becomes, when it comes to morals, we don't all share morals. Morality is also a personal choice. Our moral choices are personal to us. So if you want to make something inaccessible to me, something that I want for myself, you want to make it inaccessible to me because of your own personal morals, I don't understand what that has to do with me. Your morals and my morals are not the same. So sometimes we have to pay attention to certain debates that we have, and we end up having them on a moral basis as opposed to the basis of, like in this case, can we deal with facts? Can we deal with what does the Constitution actually say? So if I'm coming there and you're telling me what your God has told you, I'm like, yeah, but I was not asking your God. I'm here for this because this is what I want. And according to the Constitution, this is a right that I have access to. It shouldn't be taken away from me. There's also the fear when it comes to the practitioners. There are certain practitioners who fear that then they'll help you. They'll say, okay, cool, this is what she wants. And then it backfires on them because now they are taken to court for offering the service. That's what I was talking about, like there's cases of intimidation, there's cases of harassment and such to the caregivers who offer abortion. And that is why, like, it has become so inaccessible. The other aspect of inaccessibility also comes from a point of price. The funny thing, I know I use the word funny a lot. The funny thing, or the sad, actually this one is very sad. In this country, if you have money, you can get almost anything. Almost. And when it comes to even like, say, accessibility to something like abortion, the people who have money, the wealthy people, it's easier for them to access that versus people who are poorer or who live in low income areas. It could be because of one, the kind of spaces where you can go to get this particular procedures done. How much do they cost? There's the fact that despite the fact that it is a fundamental right by the Constitution of Kenya, government institutions that should offer, and by government institutions, I'm talking about hospitals, government hospitals that should offer abortion care as well as post-abortion care will not offer it, because then they'll just make the prices, because those are the ones that it should be easy to access them in those centers, because those centers are supposed to offer these services at a subsidized rate. The same way unapatanga, when someone's as unwell and they're it's cheaper to go to a government hospital versus a private hospital. It's the same thing when it comes to this. When it comes to abortion, it's definitely going to be cheaper at a government institution versus getting it at a private institution. But when you go to a government institution, will you actually be offered the service? Another thing that also makes it inaccessible, information. The information around abortion in this country, very, like I said, people don't like to talk about it, very hush-hush. So people who don't have access to certain things, you don't have the smartphones, you don't live in urban areas, don't have access to the same information to people who live in probably lower income areas, probably people who haven't gone to school, so they don't know much about anything. So now that also plays a role when it comes to accessibility. So there's, like I said earlier, there's been people who've gone to court to challenge the penal code, or rather the penal code that criminalizes abortion in Kenya. We have guys like FIDA who've gone to court. We have an institution like PAC that has gone to court. And there's, like I said, there's certain courts that have affirmed. So there's a court the High Court of Kenya in Malindi affirmed. This was in 2022. There was a case that was going on there. So it said that the High Court of Kenya in Malindi affirmed that abortion is a fundamental right under the Constitution of Kenya. The landmark ruling also held that arbitrary arresting and prosecuting patients seeking abortion care or healthcare providers offering abortion services is illegal. So this was in Malindi back in 2022. So it was a group of people who went to court because someone was arrested. And so sometimes it's institutions will just go to challenge that thing, and it's can we decide, are we following what the Constitution says? Are we listening to what this penal code says? Because the person who's arresting you will use the penal code. They'll say the penal code says this is a criminal activity that you are doing. But then the Constitution, which is the overall thing that governs the entire country, says it's not. So I think also when it comes back to the information, people don't have this information. The people who talk about it a lot, the people who are very vocal, talk about the penal code, but people don't talk about the Constitution itself. In the Constitution, it's a fundamental right. Then, you see, if I don't have that information, it's very easy for someone to come and say, according to the 1963 Penal Code, this is a criminal activity. And if I don't have the info, I'll just have nothing but to believe them. I don't have an option. I have to believe. And then I'll be like, oh, ini job yake, so whomst am I to say otherwise, right? When we talk about stigma, let's come back and talk about stigma. Stigma is a very interesting thing to look at. And now in this case, we're looking at stigma in terms of abortion. Let's talk about it. But for now, here is pressure.
Pawa Radio. Tune in and power up.
Pressure, ona vile inatupeleka. Pesa, kikosa leo unakesha na kuna kesho. Tulia kidogo, ganga ya leo na ukinge moyo wako. okay. With wonderful scars that help us find our way. And when it gets dark and you cannot feel my faith, pick up the guitar and sing our song again.
Medman you quay, Tinky Machuni Dwaro, Kungena Munge, Kima Kinyo Pango, Niketri ran away from misery. We had to pay for it dearly. Tutachelewa, lakini ndoto zetu hatutachorea. We've made it this far, we're gonna be okay. With wonderful scars that help us find our way. And when it gets dark and you cannot feel my face, pick up your guitar and sing our song again.
That's what he said to me. Rudi nyumbani, doesn't matter what you did. Shoka Moshe, that's what he said to me. Rudi nyumbani, doesn't matter what you did.
What you did.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Shoka Moshe by Stacey Kamatu. We are having a conversation about abortion in Kenya, and we are just looking at like the different, like where do we stand when it comes, because according to the Kenyan Constitution of 2010, abortion is a fundamental right. But then according to the Penal Code of 1963, abortion is a criminal activity. And also, there's been like different timelines, which I'm going to walk you through. I found a really good document that has like a proper timeline of how it's been like a back and forth between like different institutions trying to get the government to amend and have like regulations when it comes to abortion in Kenya. When you look up abortion in Kenya, if you just type that and you go to the Wikipedia page, the first thing it says is that abortion in Kenya is prohibited with the exception of certain circumstances, including danger to the life and health of the expectant mother and rape. Unsafe abortions are a major cause of death and health complications for women in Kenya. So I'm going to walk you through the timeline in a bit so that you see why they're saying with exceptions, because there's been, but by the 2010 Constitution, abortion still remains a fundamental right when it comes to reproductive health in this country. But then they keep switching up on things, agreeing to things, and then taking them back. We were talking about stigma before we went on the musical break. Stigma is usually just used as a shame factor, right? In this country, there are so many things we like to stigmatize people for doing, especially when we think they are not following the same moral code that we have decided on ourselves, which 90% of the time is more of like a religious code of ethics that we choose to follow. And when someone else decides to do something completely different, we are like, oh, hell no, how dare you? So there's a lot of stigma around abortion. And even when people talk about abortion, they talk about it from this standpoint of, it's like people like to pop abortions or procure abortions the same way you like eat njugu. So it's like you're just out here being very promiscuous and then just catching pregnancies and then just going and terminating them, which, according to statistics, isn't actually the case. I mentioned this on Monday and I'll mention it again. The highest number of women who procure abortions are married women. Some of them are even already mothers, okay? 2, the number of abortions don't go up the moment you offer safe abortions. The number of abortions stay exactly the same. What changes is that people opt for safe abortions versus unsafe abortions. Unsafe abortions are those ones, I don't know if growing up, you guys had the same thing. I remember like people used to talk about, so do you drink very concentrated tea and then that will do that. There's people who would say things like, so you drinking bleach, drinking sijui or more, like so many. For some random reason, it was always just drinking things that might poison you. In a way, it was just insane. But I remember like hearing such stories and I didn't understand like what that meant in essence, because I was young and no one was talking to us about these things to begin with. So the stigma, we go back to stigma. Stigma comes from, it's like you're shaming people for procuring an abortion. You want to make them feel unworthy. And then there's also this stigma where people were like, oh, you just killed a child, which is not true, because if it was a child, it would have just been out here perambulating by itself. I'm just saying. So there's always that. And then there's also the language that people use when they talk about people who've procured an abortion. There's even like, there's the people who are sharing stories about how Sijui, which year it was, and people were talking about at Sijui, if someone has dark thighs, it means they've had multiple abortions. At Sijui, if they have, there's usually that black line that we have in the middle of, I don't know if everyone has it, me, I know I have it. The black line that you have in the middle of your tummy, they just, then that's an indication of you've had an abortion. There was Sijui, if you have a scar anywhere near your underbelly, that means you've had, so there were so many myths, because that's what they are, about like how to tell if someone has had an abortion or if whatever it is. And then there's also the way people talk about it, where they're like, like it's a very light thing. It's like people just wake up and go like, you know what I'll do? I'll just go have an abortion. That's not how that works. Like it's a process. It's an emotional process in itself as well. The thought process behind it is also, you have to also see where people are mentally and how they process the things mentally. No one ever takes that into consideration. And then also, the other question that I usually have for people who are very anti-abortion is, why would you want a child to come to this earth to be reminded how unwanted they are? We act like we've not seen kids who've grown up being made to feel very unwanted, and how they turn up and how they turn out and how that affects their lives. We see it every day. There's so many people who even will talk about how their parents constantly reminded them how they didn't want them. And it's like, if it wasn't for this, you wouldn't be here. If this and this, and we see how that affects people. So why would you even want someone to bring a child into this world that they don't want? Don't you even care for that child that you are trying to fight for? And then there's also the aspect of when people who are fighting so hard, they will only fight for you to continue staying pregnant. But then after you have the child, you're on your own. So I'm like, if we're saying we're fighting for, like, fight for something with your chest and see it through. That's a rant. Let me walk you through. So there's a lot of information here, but I want us to just digest it kidogo. This is like the timeline of like abortion in Kenya. This document will be shared down below in the description box in case you want to look through it and get like an in-depth feel to it. So in 2010, Kenya votes to adopt a new constitution to replace the 1963 independent constitution. In the 2010 constitution, it recognizes health as a fundamental right, and it includes explicit protections for the reproductive health care, which including abortion, post-care abortion, and emergency medical treatment. In 2012, in response to a request from the Center for Reproductive Rights and the Federation of Women, FIDA, the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights, like it's a bunch of people who come together, and they launch a public inquiry into sexual and reproductive rights violation in the country. Now that we have a new constitution, it's like, now let's look into this. So this is in 2012. And after doing their investigations and doing all that, they were seeking to implement, they like wrote and said that the way that it was written in the constitution, and they're just saying it's a fundamental right, but then also not forgetting that we have the thingy for 1963, right? So they were seeking to implement the new constitutional protections for abortion in Kenya. Kenya's Ministry of Medical Services published they published a standards and guidelines for reducing morbidity and mortality from unsafe abortion in Kenya in September 2012. So basically, there was a guideline that was adopted, and this was adopted to provide healthcare professionals with a guidance about when they are allowed to provide abortion services under the 2010 Constitution. And then in 2013, the director of the medical services the medical services they withdrew these standards and guidelines without any explanation or consultation with the stakeholders or the people who are even a part of the development stage of the said guidelines. Then in 2014, the Ministry of Health, they issued a memo that prohibits healthcare providers and professionals from being trained on safe abortion services, medical abortion, threatening providers who do participate in training with dire legal and professional consequences. So this is in 2014. So remember, 2010, it's passed that this is a fundamental right in the Constitution. In 2012, people come together and they say, let's come up with a guideline on how to provide these particular services. In 2013, the guidelines are withdrawn with no conversations whatsoever. And then in 2014, the Ministry of Health goes like, by the way, if you are caught providing these particular services and even training people, there are going to be serious consequences. In this case, the serious consequences also include jail time, losing your license, and everything in between. So this is in 2014. So at this point, there was confusion about the legality of abortion services in Kenya. So in 2014, we have confusion because the Constitution says one thing, the Ministry of Health says something completely different. And And then people start getting harassed, arrested, and stuff like that. Licenses are being revoked. There's actually a health memo. Following the health memo, someone called Jackson Talley, who's a licensed and registered nurse in Nairobi, was sentenced to death after a young woman experiencing pregnancy complications died in his care. So she was experiencing pregnancy complications, but he wasn't allowed to help her. But then now he's penalized for it as well. So now it becomes very confusing at this point. In 2015, the Center for Reproductive Rights files a case against the Attorney General and the Director of Medical Services and the Ministry of Health in the case of a child who died because they couldn't receive. So they were raped. They were trying to procure an abortion. It was an unsafe abortion, so they needed post-abortion care because now if it's unsafe, that means like there's continuous bleeding, there's stuff that's happening, but you can still be saved. But then according to the rules that they had been given and the guidelines being taken away, these guys were unable to provide the post-abortion care to this 14-year-old girl, and she ended up dying. So in 2015, FIDA, the Center for Reproductive Health, they again launched a case against the Attorney General, the Medical Services, the Ministry of Health, all these institutions because of that. And they challenge, they say, we need guidelines. They need to be brought back. We need to understand what rules are we following because we don't know. It's confusing. In 2016, the United Nations Committee of Rights of the Child releases a recommendations calling for Kenya to review its legislation with a view to ensure that girls have access to safe abortion and post-abortion care services, and that their views are always heard and respected when it comes to abortion decisions. I don't know how far that went because they ended up representing people in court again because they were detained for procuring illegal abortions. So this is in 2016. 2017, people are back in courts. And then it's a case of Jackson Talley, the person we mentioned above. So he's convicted to life and to death, actually. And then the Court of Appeal acquits him later. This is in 2017, as then Kenya adopts the Health Act, which broadens the definition of health under the Kenyan Constitution to include physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease. So thanks to the amending of that particular act, the Kenya Health Act in 2017, this guy was acquitted because the Nini prohibited him from giving said abortion care that led to someone dying. But then they were like, you neglected your health, whatever. So again, very confusing. So in 2018, again, the Kenya Medical Practitioners Dentist Board, they ban Marie Stopes, which is an international charity that provides abortion and post-abortion care in Kenya, following the Center for Reproductive Rights. The Center for Reproductive Rights kind of, what is it called? They come in the defense of Marie Stopes, and then the government lifts the ban. Then in 2019, the Kenya High Court issues a groundbreaking decision in the 2015 case that uko mbeleni ilikuwa on the guidelines thing. So the landmark ruling upholds the constitutional right to abortion. This is in 2019. Constitutional right to abortion, and finds that the Kenyan government violated the rights of women and girls by withdrawing the standards and guidelines that they had come up with. This case is the first in Kenya to recognize abortion as a fundamental human right, and the first in Africa to address abortion as a constitutional right. This is in 2019. So we're moving ahead in the timeline. We want to know where we are now, right? In 2020, there's again a bunch of people who go to court. They file a lawsuit in the High Courts of Kenya on behalf of a minor who was detained for receiving an abortion and receiving abortion care, and the clinician who was also treating her was also in court. So it's like you're taking people to court for procuring an abortion and for being given one. So it's like the provider and the patient in this case are both in court. So these guys come together, they challenge their detention, seeking again the Kenya to affirm that in the country, by the constitution, reproductive health care, abortion is a fundamental right. And then in 2022, I've mentioned this earlier, we go, again, there's another court hearing and a ruling that affirms that abortions are protected as a fundamental right in the constitution. So that's how far we've come with this timeline. So there's been like a lot of back and forth, where like the people agree and then things are withdrawn and then they're put back and then they're withdrawn. And then now it's like, okay, then tell us. So as it stands right now, as we're talking in 2024, still fundamental right by the constitution. It hasn't been removed from the constitution. So me, I don't know what you're going to listen to. Me, I care for what I listen to the Constitution, because the Constitution is the governing document for the land. And so if the Constitution says I have a right to an abortion if I want one, whomst are you to say otherwise? Because of your morals and your beliefs and all the other biases that you have put on there, that you've placed in there, that have absolutely nothing to do with me. No one. Exactly my point. I'm glad we agree. Let's listen to Reset and Rewind.
Pawa Radio. Tune in and power up.
There's a quarantine outside, ain't nobody leaving. It's after Valentine's, not yet July, and I wish it wasn't raining, yeah. Oh. And I know you don't believe when I said I miss you more, but you don't know what I give to walk right to your door, just to hear you say everything will be alright. Shit happens for a reason. We're finding ways to pass the time, searching for new meaning. I'm thinking maybe it's a sign for me and you to take this time to reset and rewind. There's a loneliness inside. We on the phone for hours, and we're laughing about all the times I never bought you flowers. Watching movies, getting high, writing songs to stay alive. Hope we make it out together, yeah. And I know you don't believe when I said I miss you more, but you don't know what I give to walk right to your door, just to hear you say everything will be alright. Shit happens for a reason. We're finding ways to pass the time, searching for new meaning. I'm thinking maybe it's a sign for me and you to take this time to reset and rewind. Everything will be alright. Shit happens for a reason. We're finding ways to pass the time, searching for new meaning. I'm thinking maybe it's a sign for me and you to take this time to reset and rewind. Everything will be alright. Shit happens for a reason. We're finding ways to pass the time, searching for new meanings. reset and rewind.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Before we end the show, according to the nini that people use when they're talking against abortion, when they quote Article 26, which is the article that says the right to life and says every person has a right to life, and then Part 2, which is I think what was added, says that the life of a person begins at conception. My challenge to that is always, then if life begins at conception, then shouldn't it be sustainable when I remove it from my body? Because I also have bodily autonomy. So if in truth life does begin at conception, then shouldn't it be viable outside my body? If they have a life of their own, why am I being forced to sacrifice my body for 9 months if they are a living being on their own? That's the only question I have to that. Anyway, all the documents will be that I've referred to will be linked down in the description box if you are looking to look through them. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I appreciate you spending your time here. I hope your day becomes a bit brighter. And I hope there's something that's going to give you hope. I know as a nation, we're going through it. I hope there's something out there that is going to give you some form of hope in some way, shape, or form as you carry on through this life with all its challenges and everything in between. My name is Muthoni Gitau. I will see you back here on Friday from 11 a.m. And before that, you'll be hanging out with Anwa Nyoike. So have yourself a lovely, lovely rest of the day. And we are going to end our show today with a song I really enjoy, Polaris, Tufanye.
Power Radio.
Kenya's national anthem now.
Power up.
Kenya's national anthem, Tufanye.
Ni kama naelewa lakini sielewi. Dunia nzima uliona mimi ndio mshenzi, na hii tabia sijaiona na watu Leo sina ganji soki leo na kibembeleza kama mtoto. ID Ferrari zimebaki kwa mbosho. Wezi jua niko nunge nikipost photo. Tunawasha kiwash wash nikatukoloto. Kodo moto inachoma koleta chesa. Niko kwa dance floor zimeshika nikicheza. Vile napewa macho kakipofu na mamande. Mule mbaba pale nitamupandisha pressure. Oops, under the influence. Mix sheng na kizungu ni too fluent. Kolabo ya Kapenga na Lumumba. Tuko mwiki kwa loko after party korunda. Under the influence. Mix sheng na kizungu ni too fluent. Kolabo ya Kapenga na Lumumba. Tuko mwiki kwa loko after party korunda.
Wanajua shinchila ndo kabisa. Vile mina tisha. Simu zina ring kila siku tuko biz. Na shingo zina blink. Naishi dream ya shina kiwa young na mindo tuna dim. Usiulize kai gari na space. Kuna drink kuna haribu kieka chesa. To Mercedes from Kalesa utatesa haina pressure ikwe mwaka kushika mita USD nikwe mali unafikiria niko ya ukweli na rap vitu naona kwa vision ndo ujue mi nanzanga kanishona mwisho KJZ na kuomba permission si kwa free na wako na mission kwa kaa mimi na ndo manata hizo vitisho zao siski wanovwana kuna ingine kaa hii.
Oops, under the influence. Mix sheng na kizungu ni too fluent. Kolabo ya Kapenga na Lumumba. Tuko mwiki kwa loko after party korunda. Under the influence. Mix sheng na kizungu ni too fluent. Kolabo ya Kapenga na Lumumba. Tuko mwiki kwa loko after party korunda. Unanganya mpya kwa root iko na AC ndani. Donda mali safi yanaka freshi kiplani. Ketchup kwa macho tunaficha na miwani. Kuna maziwa na maji utanipata maskani. Chinchila na mife miwan kila. Mjusi kafiri ni shadow kwa Godzilla. Makreti ziletwe na tukunywa tubebe. Matamblo usilete tunakunywa kwa pembe.